สวัสดีครับ I'm Point from ค้นพบ Let me begin with a quote that I really like from Carl Jung. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Now, I shared this quote a few days earlier on my other page, Thrive with Point, my coaching page. And that quote got me to think about the topic of forgiveness. So I want to talk about that today in today's video. I'm sure that we can all relate to some experience or perhaps a number of experiences where we feel that we have been wronged by somebody or by some group of people. We have been wronged in some way, shape, or form. This can be something very small and simple, such as a small lie, and it could range to more big issues, perhaps even traumatic issues and serious matters such as betrayal or physical harm, or very tough and hurtful heartbreak or end of a relationship. Maybe you have been cheated on by somebody in the past, or somebody stole something from you, or somebody hurt you physically or emotionally. Whatever it may be, I understand the stress and the suffering that you must have had to go through that day. And I don't mean to communicate this video as a way to brush off what happened, as a way to ignore what happened. I don't mean to communicate this video as a way to justify what happened. But think about it this way. This video is about you and your current state of experience. Because if we hold on to something with for example, a sense of grudge or revenge or anything for that matter, and for any reason whatsoever, and it could be very well a good reason, the point is we continue to suffer and cause ourselves torment. And when we really want to talk about this topic in a frank manner and a genuine manner and an authentic manner, we have to eventually come to terms and find some way to finally transcend what happened in the past, so that it no longer haunts us in our memory. It no longer haunts us in the way that we look and think about it and relive it or recall it. It no longer haunts us or brings us down in our current dynamics and current relationships of life. For example, let's look at it this way. If you have been betrayed by someone, again, I totally understand you. I've been there myself too, and it was not an easy day. But if you have been wronged or betrayed, for example, do you notice how perhaps that event or experience has now caused you to hold on to some perspective or attitude or beliefs in life? Perhaps a previous betrayal in a relationship now causes you to not be able to trust your new partner. You see what I mean by, in this case, we continue to pay the price. And again, I don't mean to talk about this as a way to brush off what happened or dismiss what happened or justify the behavior of the person who did that thing onto you. But let me share you this quote that I really love from when I trained to become a mental health coach. I think if I remember correctly, this quote was from Jessica Cox, who she is a pilot, and what's more interesting is she has no arms. She was born handicapped, and she actually became a pilot. Isn't that amazing? And you see a character like this once in a while in life, and you are inspired by them, and you realize that what have they got to make them live life to the full, despite all the hindrances or obstacles or setbacks or unfairness they have to face. In this case, Jessica Fox or Cox, I don't remember her name, forgive me. In this case, Jessica could very easily, look at life with a sense of pessimism and a sense of, protesting life, how life is unfair to to be born with no arms. And she did have to go through that experience. But the point is, Jessica said, at the end of the day, I'm paraphrasing here, life is 10% what happens and 90% how you respond. And I think that's really wise. So how does this fit to forgiveness? How does this relate to the topic of forgiveness? To truly experience your life to the full and to truly learn what it means to be happy or content, I think, we have to learn to take responsibility and ownership for ourselves, for our emotions. Again, another way to look at it is to say, we are not responsible for everything that happens in life, obviously. You can't be responsible for the pandemic. You can't be responsible for the political situation in your country, the economic situation, an earthquake that happens. Obviously you can't be responsible for that. You can't be responsible for if, somebody committed a crime in your neighborhood and now you have to face the consequences, or, maybe somebody robbed your house or your neighbor's house, and the list goes on. We're not responsible for what happens in life. However, we are responsible for how we choose to respond. We are responsible for our own emotions, our own mood, our own perspectives, attitudes, thinking, and responses. And when we look at life this way, I want to propose that to forgive means to understand the nature of life. That feeling victimized by some event is no longer going to help you or serve you or anybody around your life, your close friends, your close family, your loved ones. It's not going to serve you in any way. So then this begs the question, how do you forgive in a true sense? And what I want to propose is for you to consider. Now, this is not a means to say that you have to forgive if you don't want to, but just to consider what I have to say here, or at least keep it in the back of your mind. Forgiveness is a delicate process where we can't force ourselves to forgive. It has to be voluntary, doesn't it? And forgiveness goes quite deep. And in working with people, and also my own experiences myself, I think I've come to realize that one of the biggest challenges or obstacles towards forgiveness is, well, then we think to ourselves, if we choose to forgive the person who did the wrong, then where's the justice? Does that mean that that person gets off the hook forever? Does that mean that that person doesn't have to face up to his crimes or her crimes? Does not have to face their karma? What does that mean? I've been suffering for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. I can't just forgive. What would that mean to that person? Would that make my entire life meaningless? And I understand this sense of justice, fairness, morality. We all have it in us, I myself included. And working through that final barrier of forgiveness can be very difficult. But I want to propose this food for thought for you to consider. That, if you think about it, especially if you do contemplation, self-reflection, meditation work that I always often talk about, if you understand the nature of the ego, if you think about it, all acts that we call evil and bad, they are acted out of ignorance. That person did not know or were not aware of what they were doing or the implications of his or her actions that would cause other people and back to themselves to suffer. And think about this way, food for thought. Happy people who have truly learned to be content don't cause suffering for other people. Would you agree with me? On the other hand, people who are unhappy, who are miserable with life, they are likely to be stuck in suffering and also act in ways that continue to perpetuate the cycle of suffering and therefore cause other people to suffer as well. And I think that's what we mean by karma, right? So consider that for a second. As a human being, could you see that somebody who did a wrong or a hurtful act that resulted in real loss or real damage. At the end of the day, whether or not they show remorse or even ask for forgiveness, at the end of the day, they still acted out of ignorance. And again, contemplation, self-reflection, meditation, or any method along these lines would show you this quite clearly. Can you at least see this premise number one? That an act of evil, an act of wrong, is done out of ignorance. And thereby, that other person's own suffering as well. Number two, perhaps we ask ourselves, or we don't want to forgive because we then have to feel lost in coming to terms with, well, where's the justice? What does fairness mean? What does goodness mean? Where's the justice that has been lost? And I get that. And there's no easy answer for that. But how about this? By holding on to that narrative of what happened, the bad that happened to you, in one sense, you become victim to that belief system or that way of looking at things. Wouldn't you agree with me? And thereby, you now continue to suffer. And again, it goes back to what I said earlier. At the end of the day, we have responsibility for our own emotions, mood, perspectives, beliefs, and happiness. And when we finally forgive, we come to realize that on the deepest level of forgiveness is actually about forgiving yourself. Because you come to realize that the event has passed. Again, I'm not denying or shrugging it off or brushing it off. But the event has passed. And you forgive yourself for causing torment to yourself psychologically and emotionally for weeks or months or years, even though the event has already passed. And when you come to that realization, you realize that, you know what? You choose to forgive because you know you deserve peace and happiness. And I think that's what forgiveness means. And I want to share that in today's video. Again, I don't mean to communicate this in any way to brush off what happened. I understand. I myself have faced people who have betrayed me, and it was a very difficult day. And again, this is not to force you to forgive. Forgiveness has to be a voluntary thing. And I encourage you to begin the work that we always talk about and to look inside yourself and contemplate on why perhaps you may not want to forgive and see how it serves you or it hurts you. And I think when you look at it for what it is, you begin to break it apart piece by piece in a way that is manageable and that is safe. And eventually you will come to a deeper level of realization. And I wish that for you in today's video. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. สวัสดีครับ